Carry Me Home by PropMaster. Twilight Sparkle. Spike walked at a slow pace, his gait lumbering as he moved across the fields outside of Ponyville. Princess Twilight Sparkle sat perched between his shoulders, one hoof holding a book as she wrote her friend. Her horn glowed with energy as she manipulated a quill and scroll with her telekinesis, jotting down notes, her voice murmuring for more of her own benefit than Spike's as she maintained a rolling commentary on her current reading. Spike had trouble hearing her. Her voice was so soft. In fact, he had trouble hearing much these days, but that was okay. Listening was an art that he had perfected over the years. He paused in his gait, yawning slowly, little wisps of smoke spiraling out of his nostrils. He was tired after hiking out to the new orchard of sweet apple farms across town. The apple family continued on, as always, and Spike smiled at the memory of friends long past. The newest generation supplanted the old, and time marched ever on. Spike, however, was always there to watch them, with Twilight by his side. He'd spent the afternoon telling tales of many times great-grandmother Applejack, and her work ethic and love for her family, qualities which persisted as her legacy. The apples had been hospitable, as always, and had even managed to get together enough cider for Spike to enjoy a few delicious sips. The taste brought him back through the years, bringing a smile to his face and a tear to his eye. "Applejack would be proud," Spike mused to himself. Twilight hummed, looking up from her reading at Spike. Spike smiled at Twilight. "Nothing, just an old dragon mulling over his thoughts." Twilight smiled gently back, her voice taking on a motherly tone. "You're always welcome to share your thoughts, Spike. Your counsel is ever appreciated." Spike chuckled. "You try too hard to sound like Princess Celestia these days, Twi." Twilight blushed, her ears folding back. "You think so?" she asked, sounding more like her usual self. "It's fine. Just don't forget to be your own pony sometimes, Twilight. After all these years, I think you'd appreciate that advice," Spike said, yawning again and slowly lying down to rest for a bit. His joints ached, but he bore it with dignity. "After all this time, I still feel like the little unicorn that ascended, not the regal princess that everybody sees me as. Acting like Celestia does give me confidence, even if it's borrowed," Twilight said, her wings flaring open a bit for balance as she held her position atop Spike as he laid down. She smiled, one hoof reaching up and gently stroking his neck. "Need a break?" Spike smiled. "Yes, it's tough sometimes. All this moving around, bustling from place to place. Our little ponies move so fast these days. It's hard to keep up." Twilight giggled, patting Spike on the head as he peered down at her. "I love it when you say that. Our little ponies. You've been such a good assistant all these years, and your ownership of your role at my side has always made me so proud." Spike laughed softly, curling in on himself. "I'm happy to be by your side, Twilight. Always." He yawned again. "So tired. Gosh." Twilight smiled and watched her assistant as he lay his massive, regal head onto the grass, content to be atop her best friend, her number one assistant and family member. She felt secure there. His shoulders had become a solid and fixed point in the flow of time. But that point had started to shift. She knew what was coming, and she accepted it. Spike often spoke to her of Rarity lately, and her last words to him. "The good times are made all the sweeter by the sad ones," she whispered, running a hoof along a green ridge on Spike's back. Spike murmured, one eye winking open to peer at her. "Nothing. Rest, Spike, and dream of white unicorns," Twilight said, winking at him. "Always," Spike mumbled, his eyes closing. His breath evened out slowly. Twilight sat atop of him for a while, reading and observing her friend. Smoke spiraled up from his nostrils as he snored, and his body was warm beneath her. The smoke slowed as Spike's sleep deepened, his body relaxing. Twilight stood up after a while, the sun beginning to set behind her. She smiled, her eyes closing as she raised her wings and her horn lit up. For a few beautiful moments, her magic touched the universe, mingling with the magics of Celestia and Luna. The three alicorns' powers commingled, like gentle caresses and warm embraces from the loved ones, and the sunset was shot through with beautiful streaks of color and light. Twilight made a symphony of colors, surrendering the day to the night, her own magic enhancing the work of the other alicorns. As Luna's moon rose up, Twilight stepped away, folding her wings and opening her eyes. She turned, regarding the dragon beside her, his form still, restful. She reached out with one hoof, stroking his nose. "Oh, Spike." With a small smile, her horn lit with her violet aura, and she lifted the massive dragon in her magic, cradling him and placing him near her back, just as it had always been in the days so long ago. And she carried Spike home.